It is September of 2024, and it is still possible to feed your family delicious meals on a tight budget. Today, I've got a great video for you, a super cheap meal plan. I'm gonna show you exactly how I made 3 amazing family dinners plus a dessert on just a $30 budget. I shopped at Walmart for this video. For starches, I picked up a pound of pasta, and I wanted a shortcut pasta. And once you see what I'm doing, you can decide what kind of pasta you wanna use. I picked up 1 pound of rice. I can still get a pound of rice for under $1. You can get an even better price on it if you are buying it in bulk. Produce here, I have 1 yellow onion, and I also have some garlic. If you already have those things, you don't need to pick them up. A couple of Roma tomatoes, a zucchini, a pound of carrots is still under $1 at my Walmart, so I picked that up. And I also got some frozen green beans. Canned goods, I have some canned green chilies here, and I specifically wanted the bigger can. This is the 7-ounce can, not the 4-ounce can. A pint of half and half is well under $2, so I picked up some of that. And then I also picked up 1 8-ounce block of pepper jack cheese, $1.97, and the block is usually cheaper than the already shredded cheese, save for the Parmesan, and I really wanted a little bit of this, so I picked up the 6-ounce package of Parmesan cheese. I don't even need it all, I don't think, but this was, I think, a little over $2. For meat, I have some Italian sausage links, and I love that they come in packages of 5 because there are 5 people in my family, so everybody gets a full serving. And when I'm working with these budget meals, these are very flavorful. And I had intended to use chicken thighs. I wanted to spend about $6.50 to $7 on, 2 pounds or so of chicken thighs, but my Walmart had just marked down chicken breast, so I went ahead and picked some of that up instead, but either one will work in this meal plan. I also visited the discount bakery rack to see if I could find a good deal on a loaf of French bread, and I found this one, which still feels very soft, for 60 cents. And then this is totally optional, but if you want to spend an extra $5, I'm gonna make a dessert. And for that, I picked up 4 apples. The cheapest apples were Gala apples. They were $1.37 a pound at my Walmart. And then I picked up a 48-ounce container of ice cream. They had lots of different flavors to choose from in the Great Value brand, but I picked up this sea salt and caramel, and you'll see what I'm gonna do with this. Oklahoma recently repealed their state tax on groceries, so even with tax, which would have been city tax, my total was just over $30. Without tax, it was under $30. So I was pretty pleased with what I was able to get with that budget. And I think we're gonna love the meals that I've come up with for this budget meal plan. Tonight, we are having the Italian sausage links with some roasted zucchini, and also I'm gonna work on an Italian 1-pan rice. So I have my ingredients laid out here. Of course, I have my sausage links. We'll get those going in a minute. I have 1.5 cups of rice, and I went ahead and put it in this sieve because I'm gonna rinse it before I add it to my pot in a little bit. I prepped my veggies here. I chopped my zucchini, and then I also diced up my 2 tomatoes, about 1/4 of my onion. It doesn't take very much. And then I have 3 big cloves of garlic here. You could use more or less. You're gonna want a couple tablespoons of butter for that. I think this is the rest of the stick that I cut off. This is the 2 tablespoons I'm gonna be using. You could use oil. And then to season this, I'm gonna use a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, 1/2 teaspoon of basil, salt and pepper to taste. And you're gonna want about 2.5 cups of water or broth. If you're using broth, you can go a little lighter on the salt. And then we're gonna finish this off later on with a little bit of half and half and some Parmesan. So let's get cooking. Butter, medium to medium low. Onions. The onions have been on their own for a couple minutes, so now I'm adding my rinsed rice and my minced garlic. Stir, stir, stir. 1/2 teaspoon basil, 1 teaspoon Italian seasoning, salt and pepper, tomatoes. If you're using broth base or bouillon, now would be the time to add it, followed by 2.5 cups of water. I'm gonna bring this to a simmer, cover it and turn it down to low and let it simmer for 10 minutes. Then I'm gonna turn the heat off, but leave the lid to the pan on for an additional 10 minutes. I preheated my oven to 375 because I am pressing the easy button and I'm gonna cook these sausages at the same time that I roast the zucchini. So I have it on a foil lined sheet here and I'm gonna pop it into the oven at 375. And after 6 or 7 minutes, I will probably turn the sausages over so I can try to get that brown on both sides of the sausages. And then after about 12 minutes, 12 to 15 minutes, everything should be done. I'll use a meat thermometer too to make sure that the sausages are cooked through. My rice is done, and this method of cooking it always cooks it so beautifully. I'm gonna finish it off by adding 1/4 cup or so of half and half, and about 1/2 cup of my shredded Parmesan cheese. So it's got just kind of a little bit of a hint of a risotto vibe. Like it's trying to be a risotto, but it's not really. So it actually took my sausages about 20 minutes total, probably 18 to 20 minutes total to cook. I just kept kind of checking on them. In the last minute, I actually turned the broiler on so I could get the tops of them nice and crispy, but they are cooked through. The rice is done. I wish I had a little more zucchini, but it's good to have something green on the plate. And this is dinner tonight. Yummy. This next meal is definitely giving comfort food, and it's absolutely perfect as we come into fall. I'm gonna be using my crock pot to make a creamy chicken and rice soup, and we're gonna make a dessert of Skillet cinnamon apples with ice cream. Yum. In my slow cooker, I have half of the chicken that I purchased. There were 3 large chicken breasts in that package, so this is 1 1/2. I didn't bother cutting it up because we're gonna shred it up when it's done cooking. And now I am adding about half of my onion and 3 garlic cloves. I put this in my little rotary food chopper so that I could chop it up really, really small. If you don't like onions, like chunky onions like this, you could just throw the onion in, like half an onion in without chopping it up, and then you can remove it later. So you can get that onion flavor but not have like onion pieces in there. 3 carrots peeled and chopped. I'm gonna season this with a little thyme, probably about a teaspoon of oregano. Oops. That's way more than a teaspoon. There we go. Teaspoon of parsley. And I love rosemary, especially in chicken dishes, especially chicken soup. So I'm putting in a teaspoon of this as well. You could just use like a couple teaspoons of Italian seasoning, or just, season it how you like it. Salt and pepper go a long way. And if that's all you have, then feel free to season it to your taste. I'm going pretty light on the salt because I'm gonna add some bouillon cubes in here. 1, 2, 3, plus 3 cups of water. You could just use broth and then you wouldn't need the bouillon cubes. You could use a different broth base or bouillon. It's just something that I highly recommend always having on hand in your kitchen if you can. I better plug it in. Or it's not gonna get going, is it? That would be a tragedy. Low for 5 to 6 hours until the chicken is done. I'm gonna get mine going on high for about 3 hours. And when the chicken is finished cooking, I'm gonna take it out and shred that chicken up and put it back in. And then we'll come and add some more stuff to this to finish it up. Mine cooked on high for about 3 1/2 hours, and it was very easy to shred up the chicken. I just finished doing that, so I'm gonna put it back into the pot here. And I'm also going to add 1 cup of half and half. That would be half of this pint. We've already used a little bit. Yes, I am just kind of eyeballing it. And 1 cup of rinsed rice, and 1 cup is about what is left of the package that we purchased, because the 1-pound packages I find usually have about 2 1/2 cups. I'm gonna give this a nice stir, and then I'm gonna pop the lid on and let it cook on high. Even if you were cooking it on low before, you want to switch it to high when you add the rice. My crock-pot brand crock-pot cooks kind of hot, so it's probably only going to take about 30 to 45 minutes for that rice to cook. Might take up to an hour. You just want to kind of maybe check on it after 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, last little step. I'm going to add a big handful of Parmesan cheese in here and stir this in. We like this more of like a chowder. If you wanted it thinner, you could use more liquid. Yes, I know it is tricky to cook rice in the slow cooker. You don't just want to let it go on and on. It'll just turn to mush. Mine has been in here about 45 minutes or so. You can also make this soup on the stove. It would probably take about 45 minutes to an hour for the chicken to cook. You would shred it up, put it back in, and then go ahead and throw your rice in and cook that. Just bring it to a simmer and cook it on the stove. Add in your half and half and your cheese, and you're ready to go. But I just like the ease of the crock pot, and I've sort of learned how to cook rice and pasta in the amount of time and liquid that it takes for me. I turned my loaf of French bread into garlic toast. This is dinner tonight. I've got some lovely bread to dip into my soup. Like I said, you can thin it out if you want to with a little more broth or liquid. It doesn't look like much, but I'm telling you, it tastes so fantastic. Yummy. To make the cinnamon apples, I started by peeling, coring, and chopping my 4 apples. I just picked out the least expensive apples in the grocery store. They were Gala apples, but you could use a different kind of apple. I dropped 2 tablespoons of butter into a skillet on the stove, and once that was melted, I put my apples in the skillet with the butter. I added 1/2 cup of brown sugar. You You can probably use white sugar if you don't have brown sugar. It's just not gonna have that molasses kind of flavor put into it. I stirred those around and let them cook down a little bit, probably 3 to 4 minutes on medium-low heat. Now it's time to add a little seasoning. We're gonna put some cinnamon in here in a little bit, but you could also optionally add like nutmeg or allspice or cloves, not the whole cloves, the ground cloves. I just wanted to show you that those were options. I decided to take a shortcut and sprinkle about a 1/4 teaspoon or so of pumpkin pie spice into my apples because it actually has a lot of those seasonings that I already mentioned, and I don't use pumpkin pie spice a lot, so anytime I get an opportunity to, I go ahead and use it because eventually it's not going to be as flavorful for sitting in my pantry for so long. I started to pop the lid on those to let them simmer down, and then I realized that I forgot the cinnamon. We've got to have cinnamon in cinnamon apples, right? So I added a couple teaspoons of that, stirred it all around, popped the lid on, and I let those apples cook down for about 10 minutes. I think I forgot to mention earlier that I did add about half a cup of water at the beginning of the cook process, and I went ahead and added probably about a 1/4 cup more of water only because I wanted a little bit more liquid and sauce in the apples. The last thing I did was make a cornstarch slurry to stir in the end, and I used about a tablespoon of cornstarch with about a 1/4 cup of water. I stirred that together and then poured it into the warm apple mixture once they had cooked down to the consistency that I wanted. This is just going to help thicken up that sauce a little bit that's around the apples and help actually the apples stay coated with the sauce. You can serve these with just plain old vanilla ice cream. Some people just like to eat them on their own, but I opted for this salted caramel ice cream, and I gotta say, this is the Great Value store brand ice cream, and it is absolutely delicious, even just on its own, but it was really fantastic with the apples served alongside it. It's such a simple dessert, but there's something really comforting about it, and it comes together really quickly and really just uses some basic pantry ingredients that a lot of us have on hand in a family kitchen. If you watch my channel, you already know that I totally get the busy mom vibe. I mean, I have a husband, 3 kids, a home to keep from descending into complete chaos, plus a business to run. Between all of the school drop-offs and pickups, the band rehearsals, the volleyball games, the soccer practices, and the list just goes on and on, right? The last thing I want to do when I finally get a moment to myself is think about, gee, I wonder what my family would do if I was no longer around to take care of them. I mean, we all know they'd probably never find anything ever again, even though the swim goggles are exactly where I said they were, or the cinnamon is staring them right in the face in the pantry. Probably the most important obligation I have to my family is making sure that their financial future is secure. Even more important than buying new soccer cleats, tracking down black wristbands, hunting all over the house for last year's soccer jersey, all things that I actually did last week. But fortunately for all us busy parents, finding affordable, quality term life insurance for our family does not require a trip in the mom van to the sporting goods store or the shoe store or the wherever you find black wristband store. Fabric by Gerber Life is term life insurance you can get done right here, right now. You could be covered right from your couch in under 10 minutes with no health exam required. And the best news for busy parents is that it's all done online. You can even apply from your phone while you're sitting at baseball practice or waiting on play rehearsal to end. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee. You can cancel at any time. They have over 1,900 5-star ratings on Trustpilot. And Fabric isn't just about life insurance. They can help with simple wills, college savings, and so much more. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Apply in just minutes at meetfabric.com/cmindymom. That's meetfabric.com/cmindymom, MEET fabric.com/cmindymom. And thank you again to Fabric by Gerber Life for sponsoring today's video. Tonight I am making a skillet dish with chicken and pasta and green chilies and pepper jack cheese. I think it's gonna be really fantastic. Let me show you what I'm using to make this. This is half the chicken that I purchased, so it's about 1 pound, and I cut it into little pieces, and then I've already seasoned it with a little salt and pepper. I have my pasta here. I'm using penne. This is 1 pound. You could cook the whole pound. I'm only gonna cook about 12 ounces. I find that that's enough for my family of 5. The last 1/4 of my big onion that I purchased all chopped up, plus a few more cloves of garlic. Still haven't used that whole bulb that I purchased. This is a big can of green chilies. These are not diced up, so I'll probably give them a rough chop before I throw them into my recipe later, but this is a 7-ounce ounce can. You could use 2 of the smaller cans too if you want. I was wrong, the green chilies are already chopped. Normally it says chopped green chilies. I mean, you can buy them whole. This one just says roasted and peeled, so I assume they weren't chopped, but they're all chopped up in there, so I don't need to chop them. I'm gonna use some olive oil for sauteing here in a minute to get the recipe started. You could use butter if you wanted instead. To season this, I'm gonna use garlic salt, cumin, and just a little bit of red pepper flake. I'm also gonna use 3 cups of broth, and I always just make my broth from water and some kind of broth base or bouillon. It's very cost effective, and this is a pantry staple in some form or fashion. I pretty much always have this. And then later on, we're gonna hit it with some half and half and our pepper jack cheese. I'm gonna grate this all up before we put it into the recipe. I have a pot of salted water heating up next to me. As soon as that comes to a boil, we will get our pasta cooking. And in my pan here, I have a few tablespoons of oil that have heated up, and I'm gonna give my onions a bit of a head start, probably 1 to 2 minutes before I add my chicken pieces to brown. I want my chicken to get a good brown on all sides, but if it's not totally cooked through after I'm done browning it before I add the other ingredients, that's okay, because it's gonna simmer for another 10 or 12 minutes with the other sauce ingredients, and it can finish cooking at that. Basically, I want it to be almost cooked through, but not quite. My chicken pieces are almost done. I'm gonna press my garlic in. I'm gonna add my seasonings, 1 teaspoon of cumin, 1 teaspoon of garlic salt, and just a pinch of red pepper flake, probably about half a teaspoon. I guess that's more than a pinch, it's a couple of pinches. But you can leave that out if you don't like spicy stuff. Although if you don't like spicy stuff, you're probably not gonna love this dish because it definitely is gonna have a little bit of a spiciness to it with the pepper jack and the green chilies and the cumin and everything. In go my green chilies and my 3 cups of water. Clean out that green chili can while I'm at it. Little bit of bouillon, because I like the flavor that it adds, but if you don't have a broth base or a bouillon, you could just add a little extra salt and pepper here. Ooh, that one's almost gone. Time to put that on the list. I'm gonna bring this to a simmer, and then I'm gonna turn it down to medium low and cover it and let it simmer for about 8 to 10 minutes, just enough time to let the flavors kind of marry together a little bit and let the chicken finish cooking. Full disclosure, I had intended to peel and chop the rest of my carrots from the 1-pound bag that I purchased, and then combine them with these green beans in a pot with about a cup of water and then whatever seasonings you want. You could keep it simple, salt and pepper. You could add a little butter, some Italian seasoning. You could add like some broth base to it. I let those simmer for about 15 minutes or so until the carrots get nice and soft and the green beans are cooked as well. I've made these before, so I can probably go back and find some B-roll to show you guys what I'm talking about. But honestly, I'm just feeling kind of lazy, and my husband's at a meeting today, so he's not gonna have this meal with us. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pop these green beans in the microwave and make them the way I normally do, with a little bit of like breadcrumbs and Parmesan cheese tossed with them after they're done cooking. But you can add the carrots and do like this simmered carrots and green beans if you want to stretch the veggies a little bit more. Okay, this has been simmering for 8 minutes. I am very confident that my chicken is finished cooking, but we can check it just to be sure. Yes, very much so. And now I'm gonna stir in about 1/2 to 3/4 of a cup of half and half and my entire 8-ounce block of pepper jack cheese. I messed up, guys. I messed up. I was supposed to stir in 3 tablespoons of cornstarch into my half and half before I poured it in, and I forgot to do that, so I made a cornstarch slurry with 3 tablespoons of cornstarch and just as little water as possible to make it liquid. And I'm gonna stir that in now and bring this back up to a simmer so that it will help my sauce to thicken just a little bit. The other thing I did that I would change if I was making this again is I used just a little too much broth. I used 3 cups, and the reason is because when I initially came up with this recipe, I had planned on cooking the pasta in the sauce instead of on its own. And I decided a few days ago when I was finishing up planning this video that I would actually just make the sauce and the pasta separately. So if you're making the sauce and the pasta separately, I would cut the broth down to just 2 cups. And then you probably wouldn't need a cornstarch slurry at all. But this is real life. I'm just a regular person. I'm not a professional chef and I make mistakes. But fortunately, I've learned a few ways to troubleshoot things so that I don't end up, you know, wasting an entire recipe's worth of food. And adding the cornstarch slurry is gonna help this sauce thicken up so that it's still gonna be a really tasty meal. Okay, here it is, you guys. It was a bit of a journey to get here with this one, but we made it, and that is all that matters. And now, hopefully I've given you a few ideas for, you know, how to troubleshoot if you run into the same kind of problems with your recipes. Okay, for all of my hard work trying to mess this recipe up, it didn't work because this is really tasty. This turned out really great, despite me trying to ruin it. You are welcome to jot down any information you want from this video so that you can recreate this meal plan for your family. Or if you are interested in purchasing a printable with my grocery list and the recipes from this video, there's a link in the description box below that will take you to my website. Per the usual, YouTube thinks you might want to watch this video next, or if you're interested specifically in budget cooking, you can check out this playlist, which is full of my budget cooking videos.